Well, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I got a question for you. Has anybody ever been mothered by somebody that wasn't your mother? Okay, this happened to me as I went through high school. I'd go over to my buddy's house, and their mom would mother me, right? And I needed lots of mother. My mom, a great mom, wonderful mom. But I noticed that my mom did the same thing. When my friends came over, she mothered them. And I also, when I would go to church, I had church mothers, and I needed that because my mom didn't go to church. And Lord, they would keep up tabs though, so they would tell her what's happening, unfortunately. But the story that we're going to be in today, usually I just keep plowing through on days like this. We just keep right in the series we're in, and we'll just keep right on going. But lack of planning and understanding, I had lined up Mark chapter 10, verse 1 through 12 for today, and that was on divorce. So we're not gonna do that on Mother's Day. It's we'll skip that on Mother's Day. We'll catch up with that later, out of order, of course. We'll keep on going, but we'll catch up with that later. Today we're just gonna pull up a chair, and we're gonna sit, and we're gonna read through some of this. Really, what I consider is it's a piece of theological artwork is what it is, and all the Bible's like that, but the book of Ruth is even more so. And we're going to look at a woman of noble character, and we're also going to look at the very beginning. I just want to read about this woman named Naomi, who really she mothers her daughter-in-laws. She's not their mom, but she mothers them. Just let me read this account to you a little bit, and then we'll jump in detail. Ruth chapter 1, verse 6 says, "When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people to provide food for them, she and her daughter-in-laws prepared to return home from there. With the two daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judea. When Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, 'Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me.'" And so, if you don't know, so Naomi's husband has died, and then her two sons, which had married foreign women in Moab, they have also died. And now the whole situation that they're in is dire. I mean, it is. It really couldn't get any worse. And so we see a woman here with a heart, with a mother's heart. She is coming alongside to her daughter-in-laws, and she is just simply talking as a mother to him. It's like, "Listen, honey, I'm too old to have another husband. I'm too old. Even if I could have another son, you wouldn't be able to wait for him to be your husband. This is kind of over. Go back and start over in your homeland. Go home," she says. And she says it with this beautiful heart, the heart of a mother was the picture we get there. And so just to place all of this in context for us, Ruth happens, it's written, and this story happens in the context of the book of Judges. And so this is a time in history that is it is very tumultuous. I mean, there's bad things happening all over the place. As we studied Judges a while back, we heard the comment that comes up in that book over and over, and each one did what they saw fit in their own eyes. People are no longer living with any kind of context to what how God wants them to live, and they're living out just how they see fit at the time that things should go. And this creates even more of a problem on top of, this would be a problem in and of itself if people were trying to live out life right, following God, but even more so in this context. And so the book of Judges is this record of God's people drifting from God, and then God punishing them in some way, getting their attention in some way. In this case that we read, there's a famine in the land. And so there's a lack of food. And so Naomi, which is a Hebrew woman, leaves the promised land, goes to Moab to probably look for food. They just probably got a lead, and there's food there. And while they're there, her two sons take wives there, and the husbands die. And so I want you to just sit for a moment in that context. If maybe you're sitting in what you consider the worst point of your life so far. Maybe if it's not, I want you to think back to when you can remember what you thought the worst point of your life was, what was happening. This is the context that we're reading. This is the context in which Naomi speaks out of this huge need that she knows that everybody, that her little family there has now, and she encourages her daughter-in-laws to go home. And so we see that, we catch up with that. Let me just read verse 1 because it's just chock full of information for us. Chapter 1, verse 1, it says, "In those days when judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and so the man from Bethlehem in Judea, together with his wife and two sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab." So we get all the context, all that right there for us. And as these two daughter-in-laws contemplate what they're going to do, one, Orpah, goes back, and she decides, I'm gonna go back. I'll start over, right? But one decides to stay. We're going to pick up in chapter 1, verse 15. It says, "Look," said Naomi, "your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Go back with her." So it's important for us to understand the context of Moab was about as opposite as you could get from the promised land, from the Israelites. They were actually considered rivals. They were enemies throughout the Bible. One commentator calls Moab God's toilet. Okay, let's go to God's toilet, look for some food, right? So this is a foreign land. Let me put it in further context for you. Just tell you how far away they were from God's people. They worshiped gods that it was quite often practiced that the firstborn would be sacrificed to. Okay, that puts the context in the land that they're living. Okay, and kind of just the picture of it. Okay, and so. So Naomi encourages, go back. It says, "Then Ruth replied, 'Do not urge me to leave you, to turn back from you.'" And this is famous, right? "Where you will go, I will go. Where you will stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, your God, my God. There, where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May that God deal with me, it ever so severely, if even death separate you and me." And then it says, when Naomi realized Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So we see a mother figure mothering, and now we see this young woman that has this really deep capacity for nobility, a noble character kind of rise to the surface, and she decides that she's going to cling. The word in verse 14 is cling to Naomi. Ruth clings to Naomi. This word is, in the depth of emotion, is like life-saving. It is like you are drowning and you are clinging to a life preserver that will bring you life. This is the kind of connection that has been made there between the two. And so now we see this woman Ruth, who now is going to show her character in ways that are really surprising, especially from a foreign land. And so this huge need, right, has come up. It's monstrous. We see that Ruth is going to carry herself with this noble character that kind of just drives her through the rest of the story. And now we see that God is going to start providing for their needs in big ways. We're going to pick up in chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, 'Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain that's left behind any of those eyes who find favor.' Naomi said to her, 'Go ahead, my daughter.' So that they went and entered the field and began to glean and began behind the harvesters. As it turns out, she was working in the field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech." Okay, so we see God providing, but he's setting up, what God is doing, he's always setting up behind the scenes. Things that we've like, are you kidding me? I showed up at the dude that's related to the dude that's related to Naomi, right? His field, all right? Now, so let me put back in context, remind you where we're at, right? So even back home, even in Israel, it is a dangerous time. It is a dangerous time for a woman to be going and practice. This is a safety net built into the law of God's word, okay, that they are not to harvest the entire field. They are to leave the corners, even some down the middle of the rows. They were to leave food there so people who have nothing can go there out of diligence, right, and help themselves, right, out of turning to help themselves. Sometimes I think we do too much for people. Sometimes I'm all for helping people, but sometimes I think we try to handle every aspect of every need that they have, and I think that's not good. We don't see the Bible actually practicing that, and we see the Bible giving a chance for people to get a running start of getting on their feet, right? And I think it's important to note here for a moment. But it's a dangerous time. So a woman in a field like this, right, is kind of dangerous in good times. This is bad times. She could show up at a place, a farmer's field that decides that he's practicing whatever he sees fit that day. Okay, and he could see this beautiful woman. He could abuse her, or he could sell her into slavery, or worse yet, just kill her. Get out of my field. You shouldn't be here. And so, for her to show up at a place that's really a place of refuge, we get this picture. She shows up. God is always working, right? And just then, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, greeting the harvesters. The Lord said, "The Lord be with you." "The Lord bless you," they answered. Boaz asked the overseers of the harvest, "Who does this young woman belong to?" The overseers replied, "She is the Moabite, who came back from Moab with Naomi." She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." And she came into the field and has remained there from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter. And so we see, noble character equals diligence. It just does. She doesn't sleep in. She's got a plan. She's like, okay, let me see what we could come up with here, right, Naomi? And so Naomi encourages Ruth. She goes out and she just does this thing. She just gets out there in the middle of it, bravely, with nobility, and she's noticed. Right, the story begins to circulate. So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Do not go glean in any other field. Do not go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and drink from the water jars that the men have filled." At this she bowed down with her face to the ground, and she asked him, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes, that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz replied, I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. How you left your father and mother, your homeland, and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May he richly reward you, be rewarded by the Lord. And God of Israel, under whose wings you now have come to take refuge. And so we see here the rest of it spelled out, and we see that this guy he pays it. He's a good guy. He's trying to live out what practice and do what God has him to do. But Ruth wants more. Okay, Ruth wants a redeemer. She wants the problem. She just doesn't want the problem today taken care of, right? We all have problems of the day, don't we? But we all have bigger problems, don't we, that follow us, right? It's like, man, God, if this would be taken care of, whoo. We all have a need for a redeemer. And this is what Ruth seeks. And so through counsel with Naomi and Ruth, they come up with a plan, and the plan is to have a kinsman redeemer. Someone in the family, this is also spelled out in the Old Testament, someone in the family that would come alongside and carry the name and family on. And so Boaz, he does this. He steps in as a kinsman redeemer. Although Boaz was not the closest one in the line for this. He had to go to town. He had to have a conversation with the person that was close and give him the option. It's like, hey, are you going to buy this land, this family's land, because this woman comes along with it? Are you, and they're like, no thanks. And so the deal was sealed in that day by taking your sandal off and handing it, trading it. Can you imagine going to the bank? Right? It's like, here we go. So let me take my shoe off and hand it. Like, they go, what are you doing? Right? But that is what happened. And Boaz does this. And we pick up in chapter 4, verse 13 says, so Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And when he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The women said to Naomi, praise be to God, who has on this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The women living there said to Naomi, Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. See, we see another piece of what God is doing. Behind the scenes was part of the plan where not only was this woman Ruth of noble character. Let me just remind you, let me read to you verse 11 of chapter 3, and it says, now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Everybody knew what a woman of noble character was. Let me just read you a piece of Proverbs 31. This comes from the paraphrase version, the Message. It says, she is skilled in the crafts of home and health and diligent in homemaking. She is quick to assist everyone in need and reaches out to the poor. She doesn't worry about the family when the snow flies because, the winter clothes are mended and ready to wear. She makes her own clothes and dresses in colorful linens and silks. Her husband is greatly respected and collaborates with praise in the city of the fathers. She designs gowns and sells them and brings sweaters and knittings to the dress shop. Her clothes are well made and elegant. She always faces tomorrow with a smile. When she speaks, she has something worthwhile to say. She always says it in a kind way. She keeps her eye on everyone in her household, keeps them all busy and productive. Her children respect her. They call her blessed. Her husband joins with her in words of praise. Many women have done wonderful things, but you outclass them all. Charm and it can be misleading, and beauty fades so soon. But you outclass them all. Charm can be misleading, and beauty can fade. The woman adorned of praise is a woman who lives in fear of God. She deserves everything and adorns her life with praise. That's the definition of a woman of nobility, right? And it says something that, well, this woman, Ruth, decides to live out nobility in this fashion, which really changes the course of history. Thank goodness for us all, because it meets one of our greatest needs. See, our greatest need is that we all need a kinsman redeemer. And this is trusting in the faithfulness of God. And this is what's played out when let me just remind you from chapter 2, verse 12, may the Lord repay you for what you have done. You may be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, underneath whose wings you now come take refuge. And so we see her trusting and submitting to what God's plan is. And then we see her living that out, and how she treats and how she handles herself and how she handles her mother-in-law. See, Ruth's story is not just about noble character, it's about a Savior. That's the band to make their way up. Let me just finish reading to you the genealogy that we get in the end of this book. It's important. Then Naomi took the child in her arms, and she cared for him. The woman living there had said, Naomi's had a son. They named him Obed. He's the father of Jesse, the father of David. This is King David. This is the greatest king that ever ruled in Israel until the coming of the King of Kings. It says this, then this is the family line of Perez, the father of Herazon, the father of Ram, the father of Abidan, the father of Nahshon, the father of Salmon, the father of Boaz, and Boaz, the father of Obed, the father of Jesse, and Jesse, the father of David. And if we were to flip over and we were to read the genealogy that's laid out in Matthew chapter 1, we would go all the way to the end. And in that line is Ruth, and is Obed, and is David, and then is Mary. And Mary gives birth in this line, in this genealogy, in this family tree, to the Savior of the world, the Redeemer. That's what ultimately plays out here for you and me, is that we see that this unlikely situation, in which was so dire in this foreign, faraway place, through this woman that was from another country, decides that she's going to follow the one true living God. And that would lead to being part of the family of God for you and me, which meets our greatest need. We all need a Redeemer. Whether you realize it or not, your sin has cast you far from God. And the only answer to that is the Redeemer, Jesus. So maybe you're hearing that for the first time and you want to talk more about that. Maybe you already know you need to make a move and you need to make Jesus Lord of your life. Maybe you just need to sit in the hard stuff that you're in and be reminded that God is faithful. Right? Let's stand and sing this together.